A very interesting trade update has occurred earlier today as the Minnesota Wild have been linked to a very interesting name in Yegor Chinakhov from the Columbus Blue Jackets. We're going to be breaking down all of what's going on right now, as well as a new hidden detail that has been revealed in the Minnesota Wild schedule, as the end of the season is going to be a lot more important than people currently think. But ladies and gentlemen, before we do jump into all of the news that we have here today, be sure to hit the sub button because we have a one request from you. We're on the road to 2K, and we'd love to hit that by the end of this month. We're currently sitting just over 100 subscribers away from that. I know you guys can do it. Your sport's been absolutely incredible as of late, and we have so much Minnesota Wild news coming, you will not want to miss it. But we need to jump straight into this and go over the first little bit that we have here from Yegor Chinakhov's agent of a quote that he had earlier today. Yegor Chinakhov said, "I had some misunderstandings with the coach during the season. That coach was Dean Evason, keep in mind. Now I would be glad to have a trade. I would like to move to a different location. Will it be a return to Russia? As long as I can play in the NHL, I will keep developing here." Now, this is a major update because Yegor Chinakhov is a player that a lot of fans have had their eyes on, not just around the Minnesota Wild, but around the NHL. We've seen a lot of people say that, especially now when his request of a trade has been coming out, a lot of fans from different teams have been requesting that their team go out and try and get this guy because of some things that he brings to the table. We're going to be breaking those down and what it brings for the Minnesota Wild. Now, I do want to pull up, first of all, his stats, going over what he's brought to the table for Columbus over the past few seasons, and he's been a very valuable asset for that team. And you see a little bit of up and down throughout the NHL and the AHL. The AHL has not had too many games from him there, 11 in total over the past 3 years, but with Columbus, he's been a guy that has not played the entirety of every season. Of course, there's been some injuries here and there, some scratches and everything along the lines of that, but when you go and take from his KHL career to where he is now, he's had very consistent showing over his past few seasons, about a half point per game, a little over, a little under throughout the seasons, and overall in his career as well. Pretty similar to where we currently stand on the half point per game style of things, but he's someone that brings a lot of offense, someone that brings defense to the game as well, and someone that's a very good finisher on the ice. And when we come down to it, that's exactly what the Minnesota Wild need, and there are some more important things as well that would really make him fit the Minnesota Wild that we're going to jump into here now. And when we do take a look at his JFresh chart, the contract of $2.1 million by 2 years is something that really is that a kind of a cutting fit for the Minnesota Wild. It's really what they really want to have, and it looks good on where they stand with the cap space on paper. We're going to jump into that here in a moment, but at a 48% offense, 60% defense, that's really not bad on the even strength side of things. Finishing and goal scoring, and even his play style there, on the playmaking, I should say, on the bottom, are what he brings to the table that is so important to his game. He's a guy that's not afraid to put the puck in the net, 24 years old, is a perfect fit for where he currently stands right now. And as you see from the 23-24 season to the 24-25 season on his offense and defense versus finishing in the bottom right there, after that 53-game season where he was 29 points, pretty good season there, he had a big drop-off last year going into this season. And when we do take a look at what he brings, he's a guy that really fits to that bottom six pairing. And that's why the Minnesota Wild are such an important team of this, because when we do take a look at, first of all, Yegor Chinakhov compared to the Minnesota Wild bottom six right now, there is a significant age difference between what they bring. Of course, they brought in Vladimir Tarasenko for a bit of a veteran there, and it is a bit of an expensive contract, but if he comes in to be that Vladimir Tarasenko that even we saw just a little bit of with the St. Louis Blues, that's a win in my books. You go to Nico Sturm, 2 Stanley Cups since the last time he was with the Minnesota Wild, and bringing in that experience is another important part, and having a younger player in this bottom six would be a very important part of this. Now, the Wild have it in-house, but they don't have anybody that has had that much NHL experiences as Yegor Chinakhov, and of course, we know the money that they're trying to spend right now is suggested and supposed to go to Marco Rossi here, and currently standing at just over $10 million, and having a 2.1 by 2 year deal really helps that, because you can go out, get a trade for Yegor Chinakhov. Of course, if something like this were to go down, we still don't know if the Minnesota Wild are interested, but a lot of fans are, as we've been able to see on X or Twitter. And then going into Marco Rossi's contract, they would still be able to make that happen. So getting a younger player who has that NHL experience to add into this bottom six could really work out well. And even on the second line there, Marcus Johansson, we're not sure if he's going to actually play there yet with Matt Zuccarello at 37 years old. Of course, we do also have Danila Yurov, who's in this lineup that is not on the Puckpedia lineup right here, right now. There's a lot of options there, and a couple Russian chemistry could be a pretty good look here for the beginning of the Wild's next season. So I want to know what you guys think. Do you think it'd be a good fit for this Minnesota Wild team to kind of make it a bit younger? You will be willing to make a few moves from players who the Wild have down in the AHL that may be kind of frustrated with their play here so far and not being able to crack the roster, because we do have a lot of them, but we also do have a bit of a presence there in the bottom six as well. So let me know what you think about that. But I do want to pull up next now what we're currently looking at as a hidden detail in the Minnesota Wild schedule going into the end of this season, this upcoming season. And I missed it in my first look around. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably did too. And I want to pull this up and go over what is happening in the midst of February for this Minnesota Wild team. And it says after the 26 Olympics, the Winter Olympics that is, and February 5th to 25th, the Wild will have 24 games remaining on its schedule, including 11 home games, 13 road contests, and the Wild will play 11 games against the Central, 4 against the Pacific, and 9 games against Eastern Conference opponents. Now, I do have the schedule here, and I'm going to pull it up and kind of go over it because this is something the Wild are going to need to kind of lock in with. We know that, of course, this team is going to be a very, very good team this year if everybody stays healthy. We were expecting that last year, of course, Kirill Kaprizov on record-breaking pace. But when we do take a look at it, Nashville, Colorado, Utah, St. Louis, Vegas, Colorado again, Utah again. You have your Eastern Conference group there. Chicago twice, Dallas, Tampa, Florida, and Boston. That's a very, very tough way to end the season. And a lot of Central opponents that we know are going to be pretty tight in the standings when it does come down to the race to the playoffs. And there's a lot of teams in the NHL who start off hot and get slower at the end of the season. There's some teams that start slow and get hot near the end of the season, but we're going to need the Wild to do both because we need to start off on a hot foot, especially with some of these younger players coming into this lineup and, kind of translating into another similar season we started off with last year. We need to have a lot of wins, a lot of good record before anything goes south. God forbid it does. Of course, injuries happen, though. We know that. And this younger lineup is going to be changing quite a bit with names like Liam Ogren and, a few younger players that we still don't know yet. Of course, we know a few that are going to be in the lineup, but you never know who's in the AHL that's going to come up throughout the early part of the season next year to crack this roster. And we also don't know what moves are going to be made. Of course, it's going to be a big part that the Wild start off hot and end hot. We need the middle to be good as well. We need that consistency as well, but the end of the season could be do or die for this Minnesota Wild team, and I think that's why this is such an important and kind of crucial part of this season when it does come down to it, because I'll pull up once again the lineup that we do currently have, the schedule that we do currently have. Even starting off on February, you end up with Montreal and Nashville, then you have that big Winter Olympic break compared to what would have been a smaller All-Star or Four Nations break, and now coming into what we're seeing here, I know we're going to have a lot of people in this Olympics staying hot, which is going to be good, but this could be a pretty important part when it does come down to it, especially with a lot of these Central and Pacific teams fighting in the wild card as well as in the Central. So I want to know what you guys think about the schedule. What do you think the Wild need to do, first of all? I know it's kind of a pretty big question. What do you think the Wild need to do to be able to make sure that this season stays a hold of it? And what do you think is going to be a big change the Wild could face when we do get to the end of the season? Because there's going to have to be some moves made when it does come down to it to make sure that we actually lock down the end of the season, because we know the Wild are going to be a top team in the NHL, and we need to get past the first round of the playoffs, or I may lose my mind. But that is all I have in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well, and let me know as well what you think about Yegor Chinakhov at the beginning of this video. Do you think he'd be a good fit for this Minnesota Wild team? That's all I have in this video, though, like I mentioned, and thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. That's all I got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.